Billionaire Ian lived in a large, quiet house that stood on a hill above the city, and its wide windows shined each morning when sunlight touched the glass. But inside the grand halls the air often felt empty, because Ian spent most days alone, focused on business deals, meetings, and plans that kept him far from the warmth of simple family life. He had grown up with little comfort and worked many years to build his empire, so he believed that staying strong and distant was the only way to protect what he had built. Still, there were moments when he noticed how silence filled his home, and those moments stayed in his mind more than he wished. Beneath his confident walk lived a heart that remembered the struggles of his childhood and the kindness of people who had once helped him when he had nothing. One of the workers in his house was a maid named Miriam, who came each morning with her 2 children, a gentle daughter named Sanaa and a younger son named Rafi. Since there was no one to watch the children while she worked, she brought them along, and Ian had allowed it because he respected her honesty and her hard work. Sanaa was around 12 years old and carried a quiet calm in her actions. She helped her mother whenever she could, keeping the small cleaning items organized and guiding her little brother with patience. Rafi was turning 8 that day, and although life for them was simple, Miriam wanted to make his birthday feel special. She had saved little by little for weeks to buy a small cake from a local shop. The cake was not fancy, but it was made with love and hope. She wanted her son to feel celebrated even in their limited life. After finishing her work list for the morning, Miriam handed the small cake box to Sanaa and asked her to take it safely to a corner room where the children usually waited while she cleaned the rest of the house. Sanaa walked carefully, holding the cake with both hands, and she felt a small happiness in her chest because she knew how excited her brother had been all week dreaming of his birthday treat. The box was wrapped in simple white paper with a thin blue ribbon, and she imagined the smile on her brother's face when it would open. She stepped into the hallway, where sunlight made long patterns on the floor as she moved, but just as she reached the turn near the staircase, her foot caught the corner of a loose rug. She stumbled, and the cake box slipped from her hands, falling softly onto the floor without a loud sound, but enough to push the cake to one side. Inside, Sanaa quickly picked up the box with shaking hands, fearing that the cake might be damaged. She opened it slowly, and her heart dropped when she saw the little chocolate frosting pushed to the edge and a small side broken inward. It was no longer neat or perfect, and she knew her mother had tried so hard to make this day special. Sanaa felt tears rise to her eyes, but she blinked them back because she did not want anyone to see her cry. She held the box to her chest and turned to go back to her mother, thinking that she had ruined the only gift they had managed to prepare for her brother. At that same moment, Ian was walking down the long hall, reviewing a file in his hand. His steps were naturally steady, and his mind was on work until he noticed the young girl standing in the middle of the hallway, holding a bent cake box close to her heart. Her face carried worry, sadness, and guilt, and something about that expression made him pause. He approached her gently and asked if she was all right, his voice calm, and without any sharp tone. Sanaa looked up, surprised to see the owner of the house speaking to her directly. She nodded, but her eyes told the truth. Ian asked her what happened, and after a moment she answered that she had dropped her brother's birthday cake by mistake. Her words were soft and filled with fear that she had spoiled something precious. Ian listened quietly, studying the little damaged box, then looking at the girl whose hands still trembled. He felt a memory rise from his own past, when he too had felt sadness over small things that were big in the heart. He saw in Sanaa the same struggle he had once felt as a child, when every little joy mattered because life offered so few of them. In that instant, something shifted inside him, and he understood that this small moment mattered deeply to her and her family. Without thinking further, he asked her to follow him to the kitchen. She hesitated, unsure, but walked with him. He opened the large kitchen freezer where a variety of expensive cakes were kept for guests, events, or sudden gatherings. He pointed to a beautiful chocolate cake decorated with bright cream flowers and soft golden sprinkles. It was far bigger and much more beautiful than the one she carried, and he said that this would be for Rafi instead. Sanaa stared in shock, unsure how to react. She tried to say no. She tried to explain that their cake was enough, but Ian shook his head gently and said that every child deserved a joyful birthday, and he Wanted her brother to smile today. He took the damaged cake box from her and placed it aside, then carefully handed her the large fresh cake, telling her to hold it with confidence, because this one would not fall. Sanaa felt her chest warm with relief, surprise, and gratitude. She carried the new cake with careful hands, and her steps grew lighter with each move. She walked back toward her mother, thinking about how happy her brother would be and how this kind gesture from someone so distant and powerful had changed their day in a way she never imagined. Ian watched her go, and for the first time in a long while he felt something gentle move inside his heart, a feeling that simple kindness had more value than any deal he had signed, though he did not realize it. Yet this small moment would be the start of something bigger, something that would soon surprise everyone in the house, and everyone who believed they already knew who Ian truly was. Sanaa walked toward the small room where her mother waited while she cleaned the final hallway, and her hands trembled not from fear now but from the strange mix of joy and disbelief that filled her chest. She held the beautiful cake, carefully feeling the coolness of the box through her fingers, and every step reminded her of the kindness she had just received. Her mother had always taught her that good people still existed in the world, even if life felt heavy, and now Sanaa felt that lesson come alive as she slowly pushed the door open. Miriam looked up from folding some blankets on a chair, and her eyes widened when she saw the large cake in her daughter's hands. She hurried toward her, thinking perhaps the house staff had given the wrong box by mistake, but when she noticed the slight panic on Sanaa's face turn into a soft smile, she understood something unusual had happened. She asked where the new cake came from, and Sanaa explained everything, her voice full of honesty and wonder, telling her how the original cake had fallen and how Ian had seen her sadness and replaced it with this beautiful one. Miriam pressed a hand to her chest, overwhelmed, because she knew how expensive such cakes were, and she never imagined her employer would think about something so small for her children. She felt gratitude fill her heart, and she reminded Sanaa to thank Ian again later for this kindness. Rafi sat in a corner playing with a toy car made from old bottle caps. When he saw the large box, his eyes sparked, and he rushed toward his sister. Jumping in excitement, he asked if this new cake was really for him, and Sanaa nodded with a proud smile, watching him dance around with happiness. The room brightened with laughter, and for a moment the worries that usually floated around their little family melted away. As Miriam hugged both children tightly, Ian walked past the room as they celebrated quietly, and he slowed his steps, not wanting them to notice him but wanting to see if the cake truly brought joy. And when he heard the soft giggles, he felt a warmth grow inside him. It was a feeling he had not known for many years, but he did not step in because he believed the moment belonged to them, not him. Still, something gentle stayed with him and followed him the rest of the day. Later in the afternoon, as Miriam continued her work, the head butler named Rizwan entered Ian's office holding a report, and as he placed it on the table, he mentioned softly that the staff had been speaking about the kind act earlier, because it was uncommon for the owner of the house to involve himself in the personal matters of workers. Ian looked up from his documents, feeling a slight embarrassment since he did not intend for anyone to talk about it. He said it was nothing important, but Rizwan, who had worked with him for years, understood that something had changed, even if Ian did not admit it. Ian tried to shift the topic, but the thought of the children kept returning throughout the day. He remembered the broken expression on Sanaa's face and how quickly it had changed when he gave her the cake, and the image felt stronger than any business achievement. That day he realized that he did not know much about the workers who kept his house running smoothly. He paid them well and treated them with respect, but he had never given time to understand their lives or their struggles. During the evening, when work slowed, he walked toward the backyard garden to clear his mind. The sun was setting, painting the sky in soft gold and warm orange. He sat on a bench under a tall tree, thinking about the people who had helped him in his early years when he had nothing, and how their kindness had shaped him without him realizing it. Those memories came back gently and mixed with the image of Sanaa holding the damaged cake. Later that evening, Miriam gathered her children and prepared to leave for the day. She carried the cake carefully because they planned to celebrate at home with a small candle she had saved from a drawer. They walked through the long hallway toward the main gate, and just before they stepped outside, Ian appeared unexpectedly, his calm walk slowing when he saw them. He asked if the day went well. and Miriam thanked him with deep sincerity, explaining that he had made her son's birthday unforgettable. Rafi looked up at Ayan with wide, grateful eyes, holding the toy car in one hand and the cake in the other, and he said thank you in a soft, shy voice. Ayan felt a gentle tug inside him, and he smiled, something rare for him, because he hardly smiled in front of others. He placed a hand lightly on Rafi's head and wished him a happy birthday. Miriam then asked if there was any way she could repay the kindness, but Ayan shook his head and said that joy did not need repayment, it only needed to be shared. They left with lifted hearts, and Ayan returned to his office. But he could not focus on his papers, because a new thought kept forming inside him. The moment with the children made him feel something lost, something he wished to understand. He wondered about their life outside his house, how they lived, what they struggled with, and how much effort Miriam must put in to raise two good children alone. He realized that he had never asked these things, although she had worked for him for years. He told himself that it was not his place to interfere, but the feeling in his heart did not fade, and by the time night arrived, he made a quiet decision to learn more, not out of curiosity, but out of concern. The next morning, he rose early, something he rarely did on weekends. He dressed simply and walked down to the kitchen, hoping to see the children again before Miriam began her work. He found Sana wiping the table with slow, gentle movements while Rafi arranged some small books near the corner. He asked them if they had enjoyed the celebration, and both children answered with bright eyes, telling him every small detail of their evening and how they lit the single candle and sang happily even with their small home. Ayan listened with calm interest, feeling the simple joy in their words. He asked Sana about her studies, and she told him she enjoyed reading but had difficulty with some subjects because they had few books at home. Rafi said he loved drawing, but paper was not always available. Ayan felt a soft ache in his chest hearing this, and he realized how easily he could help without making them feel uncomfortable. He told them gently that he wanted to visit their home one day to understand how he could support their growth, not out of pity, but because he believed every child deserved a chance. And both children looked at him with hope and surprise. Miriam, who had just entered, overheard his words and stopped in shock, unsure how to respond, her heart filled with gratitude, yet also with fear, wondering why such a powerful man would care. But she saw no judgment in his eyes, only sincerity, and she knew this was the beginning of something unexpected, something that would soon change not only their life, but also Ayan's own understanding of what truly mattered. The next morning arrived with a calm sky and soft light moving through the tall windows of Ayan's house, and although the day looked ordinary, something inside the grand home felt different, because the kindness of the earlier day had warmed corners that were usually quiet and untouched. Ayan stepped out of his room with a thoughtful expression, carrying a sense of purpose he had not felt in many years. As he walked down the hall, he heard gentle voices near the kitchen, and he paused for a moment, listening to the soft laughter of Rafi and the patient voice of Sana guiding him through a small reading book. They shared the sound, touched something deep in him, because the house had not heard the cheerful tone of children for a very long time, and he realized how empty silence had become without him noticing over the years. He entered the kitchen slowly, and the children looked up with surprise and shy smiles. Miriam, who was preparing her work supplies, greeted him with respect and a hint of nervousness. Still unsure why he was suddenly giving attention to her family, Ayan asked if he could walk them home after they finished their duties, because he wanted to understand how they lived and how he might support their journey without making them uncomfortable. Miriam hesitated, her hands tightening around the cloth she held, because a man of his status walking to her small neighborhood felt strange and unexpected, yet she saw his sincerity in the calm expression on his face, and she felt her worry soften. She agreed politely and said she would guide him whenever he wished. After the morning tasks were done, the group stepped out of the mansion and began the walk down the hill. The air felt cool, and the streets grew narrower as they moved from the spacious, quiet lanes near the mansion toward the simple, colorful homes of the lower town. Ayan walked beside Miriam while the children walked a step ahead, pointing out small shops, a fruit cart, and a garden. They often visited. The children spoke with excitement, as if showing him their world, and Ian listened closely, enjoying their energy. He noticed how people in the neighborhood greeted Miriam with warm smiles, and how the children were known by many, showing that they lived among caring neighbors, even if life for them was not easy. After 10 minutes, they reached a small house with a faded blue door and a narrow walkway lined with flower pots. The pots held tiny plants that Sanaa had been caring for, and she rushed ahead to show him the new leaves growing on one plant, explaining how she had been watering them every evening. Ian looked around the home, and though it was modest, it felt full of warmth. The walls carried small drawings made by Rafi, and the shelves held neatly folded clothes arranged by Miriam. Everything looked simple, but cared for with love and effort. Miriam invited him inside, and he stepped in, carefully aware that the home held memories and value beyond the objects inside. He noticed a small table where Sanaa kept her few schoolbooks, and he saw the worn corners on the pages. He saw the pencils sharpened until they were nearly too small to hold. He saw Rafi's drawings on old pieces of paper that had been reused many times, and he felt another gentle ache in his chest because he understood how much effort Miriam put into giving her children everything she could within their limits. Ian asked Sanaa what she hoped to study in the future, and her eyes shined with a quiet dream. She said she wanted to become a teacher because she liked helping others learn, and she wanted to make children feel confident. Rafi said he loved making pictures of everything he saw and hoped to learn real painting someday. Ian listened with full attention and then looked around again, thinking about how easily he could help change their path. He asked Miriam if she would allow him to support their education, not as charity, but as an investment in children who had great potential. Miriam felt tears gather in her eyes, but she blinked them back, not wanting to appear emotional in front of her employer. She explained that she never wanted to be a burden, but she also wanted a brighter future for her children. She agreed with a grateful heart, and her voice trembled with relief. Ian then turned to Sanaa and promised that she would receive new books, better supplies, and anything she needed for her studies. He told Rafi he would bring colors and drawing pads so he could practice real art. The children stared at him with wide, amazed eyes, unsure if such kindness could truly be real. After spending some time with them, Ian prepared to leave, and as he stepped outside, he saw a small group of neighbors watching quietly, whispering among themselves, surprised to see the wealthy owner of the hilltop mansion standing in their narrow street. They wondered what had brought him here and why he was speaking warmly with Miriam and her children. Ian gave a polite nod to the neighbors, then walked back toward his car, feeling something new settle in his heart, a sense of purpose that went beyond business, wealth, and success. That evening he sat in his office, but instead of reviewing files, he kept thinking about the small house, its simple furniture, the children's hopeful voices, and the strength in Miriam's eyes. He remembered his own childhood in a home that often struggled, and how people had guided him along the way when he needed it most. He felt a deep belief that kindness repays kindness, and he wanted to be the kind of man he once wished he had in his life. The next day, he brought a set of bright school supplies for Sanaa and a stack of drawing materials for Rafi. When he gave them these gifts, their joy filled the entire hallway, and even the staff paused to watch the children jump with excitement. The house that had once felt cold began to feel alive, and Ian noticed it more each hour. Sanaa placed her new books in her small bag, treating them like treasures, and Rafi hugged his drawing pads against his chest, telling everyone he would make a picture for them. Ian watched them with gentle eyes, feeling a connection he never expected. He realized that their happiness gave him more peace than any achievement he had reached in business. As days passed, he began spending a little time with them each morning, asking about their studies and encouraging them when they struggled. He discovered that the children were bright, sincere, and full of dreams, and he felt proud of them even though they were not his family by blood. This new routine soon reached the ears of people around him, and they wondered why he had changed so much. But the truth was simple. He had found warmth in the company of a humble family, and he had discovered a part of himself he had forgotten, a part that understood what truly mattered. And this discovery was only the beginning, because very soon something unexpected would happen, something that would make the entire household stop in surprise and admire the man they thought they knew but never truly understood. The next week began with gentle sunlight falling across the wide halls of Ian's house, and something in the air felt new because the home no longer carried the quiet emptiness it once had. Instead, it echoed with soft footsteps, cheerful greetings, and the warm presence of two children who had unknowingly changed the rhythm of the place. Ian woke with a calm feeling that morning, and as he walked down the staircase, he saw Sana reading near the corner while Rafi drew on his new sketch pad. Their quiet focus made him smile inside, and he felt a sense of peace he had not known in years. Miriam stood nearby preparing her cleaning tools, and when she noticed him approaching, she greeted him with respect, but also with a comfort that had grown naturally over the past days. They no longer felt like strangers living in the same building. They felt like people connected by small acts of kindness and sincere understanding. Ian asked the children how their studies were going, and Sana told him she had started reading 2 new chapters while Rafi proudly held up a drawing he had made. The drawing showed their small home, their flower pots, and a tall man standing nearby. It was clear who the tall figure was, and Ian felt his chest warm with a feeling that surprised him every time he saw their affection. Slowly, the staff began noticing the change, too. They saw the softer expression on Ian's face, the quieter tone in his voice, and the gentle patience he showed the children, and they admired the difference, even though they never spoke it out loud. Later that afternoon, Ian called Miriam to his office, and she entered. Nervously unsure why he wanted to speak with her directly, she stood near the door, hands folded carefully, and waited for him to explain. He looked at her with calm eyes and said that he had been thinking deeply about her life, her work, and her children's future. He said that seeing their small home made him realize how much effort she put into raising them and how much potential the children had if given the right support. Then he told her something she had never imagined. He said he wanted to offer her a higher position in the house, one that paid more and required supervision rather than heavy cleaning work. He explained that she worked with honesty, dedication, and strong character, and that he believed she deserved a chance to grow. Miriam felt her breath stop for a moment, and her eyes filled with emotion, but she held herself steady. She thanked him with a trembling voice, saying she never expected such kindness, and she promised she would work harder than ever to prove she was worthy of the trust. Ian then told her there was more he wished to do. He gently explained that he wanted to support the children's school fees, their supplies, and anything they needed for a good future, not because he saw them as people who needed help, but because he saw them as children who deserved opportunity. Miriam tried to speak, but her voice broke and she raised a hand to cover her mouth. Her heart felt full of gratitude and disbelief because she had carried the weight of her family alone for so long, and she never thought someone so powerful would stand beside her with such sincerity. She finally managed to thank him, and Ian felt a soft calm spread through him because he knew his decision came from a place of honesty, not obligation, not pity, not pride. After she left the office, the news of her new role quietly spread among the staff, and instead of envy, they felt happiness because Miriam had always been gentle, kind, and hardworking, and they all believed she deserved the opportunity. That evening, as the sun began to set, Ian stood near the garden watching the sky change colors, and he heard gentle footsteps behind him. It was Sana and Rafi walking side by side, holding a small wrapped box. They approached him slowly, and Rafi spoke first, telling him they had made something for him as thanks for everything he had done. With shy smiles, they handed him the box, which was wrapped in plain paper decorated with small hand-drawn stars. Ian opened it carefully, and inside, he found a drawing made by both children together. It showed the large mansion with a bright sun above it, flowers around the garden, and 3 figures standing close to each other, one tall and 2 small. The tall figure had a gentle expression drawn on its face, something he rarely saw in himself, but something the children clearly saw when they looked at him. He stared at the drawing for a long moment, feeling something shift in his chest, a sense of belonging and warmth that he had not felt since his younger days when life had been Simple and dreams had been shared with hopeful hearts. He thanked the children and told them he would keep the drawing in his office, so he could see it every day, and he meant every word. As the children ran back inside laughing softly, Ian remained in the garden thinking about how much had changed. In such a short time, a simple act of helping a little girl with a damaged cake had opened a door inside him, a door he did not know had been closed for years, and on the other side of that door he found kindness, purpose, and a new understanding of life. He realized that wealth and success had given him comfort, but they had also created distance between him and the world. And now, with the presence of Miriam and her children, the distance felt smaller, and his life felt fuller. The next morning, something unexpected happened, something that made the entire staff pause in amazement. Ian gathered everyone in the main hall and announced that he was starting a small education fund for children of all workers in the mansion. He explained that he wanted every child connected to his home to have a chance at good education and bright futures. The announcement left everyone speechless, because no one had imagined that the quiet, strict billionaire would ever take such a generous step. Miriam stood at the back with tears in her eyes, knowing her children had opened a new path, not only for themselves, but for others too. The staff applauded with respect and admiration, understanding that they were witnessing a new chapter in the life of a man they thought they knew well but had never truly seen clearly. Ian looked around the hall and felt a sense of peace settle inside him. For the first time, he felt that he was using his wealth for something meaningful, something that carried real weight and purpose. And he silently thanked the small girl who had once stood in a hallway holding a damaged birthday cake, because without that moment, he would have never discovered this part of himself later. That evening, when he sat alone in his office, he placed the children's drawing on his desk and looked at it with quiet gratitude. He understood now that sometimes the smallest moments could lead to the biggest changes, and he knew his journey with his humble family had only just begun, because kindness had built a bridge between them, and on that bridge something beautiful had started to grow, something stronger than wealth, something warmer than comfort, something that people around him would remember for many years to come.